Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tim, and welcome to Tim Talks, the show that's only partially a show, but really it's just an excuse for me to talk to some of my very talented friends. I have another one here with me today. He's the man behind the curtain over at the RT Podcast, The Patch, and any other live streams that come out of that company, which has earned them the name Podrick. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for asking me to be here.
You're very, very welcome. Your real name, for those who may be interested, is Patrick Salazar, and you sort of take care of a lot of the in the control room type operations for the live streams. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what I do.
And so tell us a little bit, just for those who are unfamiliar with either the podcast or the fact that there's even a control room behind the actual show that they see, tell us a little bit about what that job entails.
Well, basically, my job is to get everything ready for the show and then to actually make the show happen.
Right.
So Monday, late morning, we start putting everything together, get the ads together for our sponsors, get the cameras in place, move the sets, make sure the lights are working, test everything as best as we can, and then, get ready for the show. And then when the show happens, we're actually the ones in the control room, in that one room that you see before the show. I have a group of people that work with me, and, we have a switcher, an audio person, and then I'm there just directing everything, making sure everything goes okay.
Right.
All of the credits, that sort of thing. And then we wrap it all up and get ready for the next day.
And so you say move the sets. Are they actual, like, big carts on wheels that you just horse around?
Yeah, that's something new to our process. About a month ago, we moved into a new stage, and what we decided to do was to put each set on its own platform, which rolls on casters, so on wheels. So when we finished with the podcast set, we actually physically moved that entire set out from under the lights, and then we moved the next set into position.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we haven't done before, and we're still getting accustomed to it, because if you can imagine rolling a set that weighs over 1,200 pounds plus, and usually it's just 4 of us doing it.
Jeez.
It's
no wonder they hired Blaine. It's for the muscle. It has nothing to do with the looks. It's the muscle.
It's all muscle. That's the only.
But I mean, that makes a huge difference by comparison to the set at the old studio, where basically you would just change out a few set pieces, and that was about it.
Yeah, at the old place, we just switched out the sofa and the chairs. We brought in the table and the 4 stools.
Mm-hmm.
And dropped the curtains, and that was it. And
now it's almost like a diorama.
Yeah, it is. And you should have seen us that first week when we were trying, because what ended up happening is that the studio space is actually a little smaller than what we anticipated.
Uh-huh.
So we had to shrink down the size of the platforms. Well, the platforms, there are 3 of them, and all 3 of them fit perfectly in that space.
Right.
There is no real wiggle room. So it's kind of like playing Tetris. You have to move one and move the other in its place, and then you can move. It was
that sliding tile puzzle game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That weighs a ton.
I hate those ruddy things.
Yeah,
but
that first week, it took us maybe an hour and a half to move the sets, and now we've got it done to about 10, 15 minutes.
Which that was also around the time that the new patch set was unveiled.
Exactly. Yeah, the patch set,
which looks incredible, by the way.
Well,
Let's just go and get that out of the way.
Thanks. That was a long time coming, and I was really nervous while it was being constructed, because I knew we were going to have to push these sets around. Mm-hmm. So every time I came in to check on the progress, because it was built inside of stage 5 before we even moved there, so I only got to see it a week at a time. Mm-hmm. And every time I came in, there was more added to it, and I knew that would be more weight. And so when we came in, and the designers also built it facing the wrong way. They built it facing away from the control room.
Oh, I see.
Spun around. So when they were finally done, the night they were done, I stayed to make sure that it was finally complete. Mm-hmm. I turned to the designer and I said, okay, so we can move this, right? And he's like, yeah. And I said, okay, then let's move it right now. So the designer, his helper, Brian, our graphics guy, came in, and I attempted to move this thing, and we moved it, but my goodness, it was just, I couldn't believe how much this thing weighed, and I just knew it was going to be a monster. And and we've got it down to a system now, so it's not as bad. But yeah, it was the first night we actually had to, not only did we have to move it, but we had to turn it around first.
That is a very delicate ballet.
Yeah, it was. The first time we did it, we ran into the side of the podcast set, and we were skating along on the side, and somebody kept yelling, "Iceberg ahead, iceberg!" 'Cause it was just like Titanic rubbing up against that thing, and then the lights are low, so we actually have to move it around the lights and then push it up under it.
I see.
It's quite a ballet, that's for sure.
And there's not a lot of space to negotiate in that area anyway, because there's a lot of other things being shot in that area at any given point. And then any props that are being built are usually used that same area because it's just kind of the multi-purpose room, as it were. Yeah,
luckily my desk is set right by that area, so I'm able to keep it clear of a lot of clutter. So because the last thing we want is to have a lot of stuff to move when it's time to move these things. So.
Of course. So let's go back a little bit. How did you become first involved with Rooster Teeth as a company? I mean, were you a fan beforehand, or did you just happen to have the right skill set?
I was a short fan before I actually got into the company. When I heard that they were looking for somebody, I went on the site and checked them out because I wanted to make sure I was a good fit, and it was a good fit all the way around. So I checked out a couple of videos, a couple of podcasts, and I really dug the sense of humor and the production quality. And coming from a production background, that was really important to me.
Really.
And so I joined the community because I wanted to know what the community was like too, and make sure this was somewhere where I felt like I was going to be welcomed and feel
especially
a part of
for a company where the community is that strong of a presence. I mean,
exactly.
It is a constant force. I mean, it's a thing that's been there for the last 12 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, and I know what it's like to come in and you don't want to muck it up. And so when I spent about a week on the community, and I was like, I really, really dig this, and this is something that I would love to be a part of. So I applied, and the very next morning, Brandon called me.
Wow.
And we started the interview process, and about a month later, they offered me the position.
And so you were hired specifically to do the live streams.
Right. They were before I came in, Brandon and Gus were pretty much in charge of all the live streams, and they have so much on their plates already, and everybody who works on the cast does.
Right.
So, it was like they would be working on a live action or an event or whatever it was, and they would literally just drop everything as quickly as they could, and then go set up the podcast set and do the show.
Which takes a lot of time and productivity away when you can just have one person who does it for all the different streams. I mean, they're adding a whole bunch as they go along. I mean, it started out with the RT podcast, and then the patch sort of became its own thing, and now it's growing. You said there's a third set there for use on whatever it could be. The Operation Supply Drop stream, the Extra Live stream, the Friday sponsor streams. I mean, there's a lot of live content coming out, not to mention all of the other stuff. So you need help.
Yeah, when they brought me on, they very specifically told me that, within so much time, we want to have so many shows. And that's what, my job was to make the process so efficient that it could happen. And so, right now I'm the only person on broadcast who actually, my sole job is to make sure that everything is in place and working, and so that when everybody else drops what they're doing, they can just come in and sit down as crew and we do the show.
Right.
And then so we're adding, we're definitely working on adding more. So.
And you said you had a production background before this. For those people who may be trying to get into this kind of assistant director kind of position, what background did you have to get into this? Did you go to school for it? Did you just have experience?
Yeah, both. I went to a television school. It was like a Vo-Tech school, but it was strictly for television production.
Right.
In Dallas. And it was a 2-year school. And right out of that, I got a job at a small West Texas station for CBS. And I was there for 14 years. And while I was there, I learned everything I could. I started out as a production assistant. I carried the equipment. That's all I did. I carried equipment. And then moved over to the news production of it. Did audio, learned audio, did graphics, learned to direct. Even did some master control switching for people who know what that is. And then I got into editing. And so I started writing and editing commercials and then switched over to news and became part of the newsroom, developing news stories. And once I did that, then I got hired back into production as a creative director. And I at 27, became a creative director for a station, which at that time was unheard of.
So you just jumped your way around the entire spectrum of skills until you found one that
exactly
people would hire you for the most.
Yeah, I just really, took advantage of whatever I could learn. And that's always been my advice to everybody is learn everything you can, because the more you know, the more valuable you are. And, that's exactly what this job is about. I do a little bit of everything that I have experience in.
I mean, just the knowing how to make the chyrons that come out on the bottom of the screen, the little text and images that come across the bottom of the screen is an amazing help for anyone who's trying to do YouTube videos where they just talk about random topics. Knowing that high production value level skill, it makes anything that you put out that's just shot in a bedroom, say, look 100 times better.
Oh yeah. So.
And it's one of the very big secrets to actually being successful on any sort of internet-based show, YouTube, streaming, whatever the case may be. Quality is king.
Definitely, yeah. And when you work for a company like this where, it's an interesting mix where, we have a very laid-back attitude about our content, but there is really a lot of production and thought that is put into each thing that we produce. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky enough to be on a couple of the sets, and that's absolutely the prevailing attitude. It's, listen, we're all here to have fun and everything like that, but what has to come out of it is a very, very high quality shoot.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so as you work on the podcast and such, I mean, are there different processes for each show, or is it all relatively the same?
They're relatively the same, so to speak. Really, the content is what's different. Like for the patch, there's a little more pre-production involved because, we're talking about certain topics during the show, and I get a list of everything that will be talked about or hope to be talked about. And so I go through and find as many clips and pictures and quotes as I can and get those ready to put on air, so that way when they talk about them, I can call them up.
And they're always very impressed at how quickly they come up sometimes.
Yeah, and that comes from my news background. I know how to keep things in a queue and get them ready. The podcast is a little different because it's very on the spot. And I actually have a laptop that is connected with an Apple TV, and as they start talking about subjects, I am furiously trying to find a picture or video clip and getting that up there for them to talk about it.
Yeah, just anything you could find.
Yeah. The podcast is a little more technically heavy when it comes to pre-production because we have the green screen and whatnot that we use sometimes. So, but, basically they're all pretty much the same.
Nice. So what about your life outside of Rooster Teeth? As people can see, you're not there right now, so you don't live in the office like some people do. Are you a big gamer? What do you do when you're not at work?
I usually unwind quite a bit when I'm not at work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people that am constantly thinking, if I watch a TV show, I think, oh, that's something we might want to try. I'll text Gus. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? That sort of thing. But I love movies, especially older movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I spend a lot of time watching Turner Classic Movies.
I bet that means you and JJ get along famously.
Yeah, we have a lot of movie discussions. Clayton and I do too. And
he's out of town right now, if I remember right.
Yeah, he's working on something right now, and hopefully that will be unveiled at RTX.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait for RTX. That is coming up in, oh God, just about a month.
Yeah, the countdown has officially begun. And, I actually, last year I started 5 days before RTX.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow,
yeah.
That is a trial by fire.
Yeah. So, and I really didn't get to do much that first week because nobody had time to really mess with me.
Right.
And I went to RTX, and I think one person recognized me, and which was weird because
already.
Yeah, because I'd been on the podcast for like a minute when they introduced me that week, and so I was really stunned that anybody recognized me. That's
just how pervasive that company can be sometimes.
Yeah, and so I'm really looking forward to it this year because I'll be part of a couple of panels.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll be a PA for somebody. I believe that we're getting a little jostled around a little bit. I was Jack's PA last year, which was oh man, so much fun, especially with Joel giving out his phone number.
Oh yeah. I was in the audience for that one. Actually, I was backstage for that one, and I just, as soon as all that started going down, I was like, wow, this is gonna be good.
How are you getting prepared for all the live streaming that'll be done from the panels this year? I mean, there's like 16 streams coming out at any given time.
Oh, luckily I don't have much to do with that. We hired a third party production company to handle all that.
Nice.
And so it's nice to I'll be actually able to enjoy it and just be part of panels, and I'll have a little work to do afterwards. Mm-hmm. Really, the only thing I have to do in preparation for RTX is to get the podcast set into the Coliseum.
Yeah.
Or the convention center, I should say.
Oh, man. And it'll be a little bit, well, I won't say a little bit easier, because at least last year you were just able to take all the props and everything and put them into the truck individually. Now you have to mangle that whole ruddy diorama, like I call it.
Actually, I just put it together, took it apart and put it together for the first time by myself when we moved to stage 5.
Uh-huh.
And it was just an intern, Edward, and I who did it. And so we were able to do it with just 2 people. So I'm hopeful that I got the process down and it's not going to be that big a deal. But yeah. I know how important it is for people to see it.
I'll tell you this, you'll have plenty of bodies just in Guardians that are in town willing to volunteer any moment, myself included. So don't worry, there'll be plenty of help.
That, for me, that was, I think, the best part of RTX was getting to meet a lot of our Guardians and people who, from all walks of life, like yourself, who, have this connection to Rooster Teeth, and to hear their stories about where they came from and who they are. That was really cool.
Well, there's going to be a heck of a lot more of that this year, and I cannot wait. It's getting about to the point where they're going to make some special announcements soon, so yeah, that's going to be fun. Let's see. Wow, my whole card is gone. I love when that happens. So, what has been in your life recently? Have there been any new developments?
In my life recently? No, not really. Nothing much. I mean, we've all been, dealing with this move and everything that's coming down the pike. And is
that transition like finally starting to take hold? People getting comfortable again?
Yeah, you know how it is when you move. You're unpacking. It seems like you're unpacking for a few weeks, and you're finding the right place for everything and getting adjusted. And then you can really kind of, you don't have to spend so much time on that anymore, and you can really get back to what you were doing before. The studio was probably one of the probably one of the, if not the biggest transitions we made, because it was, entirely new, and we have a new light system and whatnot.
Not only that, but you're having to truck things, just geographically speaking, halfway across Ruddy Town, which is rather large and very traffic laden.
Yeah, that's the one thing that really has changed, is that now when we have to go certain places, I don't know what it's, we moved 45 minutes north from where we were, and now to get to the same places, it seems like it takes twice as long.
Yeah.
So, that's really kind of changed the way we approach, any kind of travel that we do.
I imagine so. Logistics is a big, important part of any of these sort of deals, because you don't exclusively shoot at the studio. So
yeah.
You have to truck all the equipment around, and that costs money and gas and time and
people.
Yeah. Oh, good gracious. They won't let you drive the Ruddy production truck if you don't have a certain special license. I mean, and that's a specialization that you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
But I love all those different aspects of production that people don't really think about. I mean, nobody thinks about the man behind the curtain on these live shoots. Nobody thinks about all the editing work that goes into any sort of live shoot that goes on. They don't think about the actual process of production, which to me, because I'm a part of it, it's my favorite part.
Yeah, I'm a part of it too, and I don't think of everything that it takes to make these things happen. When we did Gauntlet Season 2, were you there for that one?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were.
Starting from the Mario Kart one and the one before that, which escapes me at the moment. Good gravy. They all blend together.
Yeah. Well, Brandon had asked me to be in charge of equipment transfer from the studio to the theater where we shot Gauntlet 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, sure, I can handle it. And I didn't know all of our equipment really well at the time. And so I had a couple of weeks to learn and try to figure everything out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a huge undertaking. I never thought about the fact that, we have to get all of this stuff
into the heart of downtown.
Yeah.
That's even more challenging than the studio, which is at least kind of on the edge. That is right in the heart of a very busy, busy town. Yeah.
So, you're driving a big U-Haul into the cityscape, and, you're having to park in a tiny, tiny alleyway and unload all this stuff. And then we decided we wanted to have the podcast set for the show that we did on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
So the very next day, I had to go back, rent another U-Haul, load up the podcast set, minus the arches, and, bring that truck in. And what was crazy was that we did the show, and that very night, Blaine and I had to pack up the set and then take it back that very night. We had to unload, we had to load it up, pack it up, all in one day.
Wow.
And it was, and the theater that we used to, we couldn't use the front door. And the back door, I don't know if you remember this, but the back door, when you come in the back door, which is the loading door,
mm-hmm.
It actually is on the second floor. And you have to come down a flight of stairs to the stage. So we had to bring all of this furniture downstairs.
Yeah. And then back up.
Yeah, and then back up in one day. It was
the things
grueling.
You do for production.
I know.
I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. The things you do for production.
Oh, that's how you know when you love this stuff, is when when you tell people these stories and they're like, why would you even do that? But you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
You just know what's ahead of you and what you have to do. And you've been on shoots where you're like out in this heat or out in this cold, and you're just like, this is what I do, and you just love it. And so
when they shot off those confetti cannons at the end of the Trials immersion shoot,
mm-hmm.
somebody had to be there to rake up all those little pieces out of the dirt and stuff. And, it's a thankless job, but the people that actually get out there and do it, they're just the best people in the world,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give it up to the little guy.
Yeah. I mean...
I'm sorry, I tried. I can't even self-aggrandize myself, okay? But that's what you do. You do the work, because this is what you love to do. What comes out of it is so amazing that you don't care that your ass is sore for weeks having walked up and down all those dirt hills for 12 hours.
Yep. You know, and I learned from an early age. I had a great mentor at the first station I worked at, and general manager. And, you know, this guy's making 6 figures a year, and he's genius smart and runs all these companies for the TV station owner. And we were running the Super Bowl for the first time in a few years on our station. And so he was there to make sure it got on the air, and it had snowed that day. And because of all the snow in the satellite, we lost the signal like about 15 minutes before the Super Bowl started. Oh. And as soon as the engineer told him, said, you know, it's the snow, it's too deep on the satellite. He didn't even ask. The general manager himself grabbed a broom and hooked it up to the roof, and he himself swept out the satellite. And, you know, that told me that, you know, it doesn't matter who you are. When you need to do something, you just do it. Yeah.
And that's a good person to work for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a green flag in that person's column. I mean, it's really hard to find people who not only understand that concept, but practice it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that actually roll up their sleeves when things get into the pits and need to be done and get it the heck done. And that's a hireable skill. You know, a lot of people don't understand that determination, you know, that kind of force of will is something that people look for when they're trying to hire you. And a lot of people just don't, get that, you know, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think too many people come into this business thinking about the credit and having their name on a credit, or the glamour of it. Yeah, the glamour of it, or the, you know, being visible to people, or whatever it is. And when they get into it, they don't realize how much work it is. I mean, even if you're in front of the camera, it's a lot of work. I'm not saying it, you know,
especially if you're doing something live. I mean, anything can happen, and you are just going. The cameras are rolling. There is no, oh yeah, no, we'll just fix it in post. There is no post.
Yeah. There's a lot of times that, you know, everything's good to go, and 30 seconds before we go on air, something will crap out, and you're like, you know, you're scrambling to try and fix it. And,
but
you know, working
that can also lead to some very brilliant moments as well. Like the extra live stream where Michael's eating 12 lava cakes and getting his head shaved, and then Blaine coming in on the supply drop stream and wrestling Aaron with Hulk Hogan style. I mean, the fact that the cameras don't stop rolling is both an excellent and very, very terrible thing. That is saved for all of posterity.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth. You know, and that's one of the things that was, I always have it on the front of my mind that, you know, coming into this, I know what the content means to our fans, and I didn't want to come in and, you know, just start changing and changing production values to the point where the content, you know,
gets altered, and people start calling you out on it. They're like, oh, you know, we didn't do sponsors before you guys came along. And
you know, change is always going to happen, but you know, you try to make it as painless as possible, and you know, and I try to do that because I know how important it is to everyone. So you know, it's a tough road sometimes.
Yeah. And so then, do you prefer doing these live things over, would you take the option to direct a pre-shot, you know, live action something at some point, or are you just going to stick to the live things?
You know, I've done, most of my career has been doing live action production type stuff, where you come back and edit. I think I prefer the live stuff now, just because, you know, even though you can get the shots that you want, and you know, you can do what you know, you can fix the flubs on the spot.
Right.
Editing, the post-production part of it sometimes can get really tedious.
Yeah,
you know?
You're very, very right on that. I mean, just in this show, which is very, very minimal editing, I promise. There's no content cut out ever. But if, like, you would randomly disconnect right now, there would be a stop and start, and maybe a small little piece of music that's rather witty, you know, and something like that. And that takes a little bit of time. And then every time we mention one of the things that I want to cut in, say, you know, where we talked earlier about Blaine and Michael and the streams and yada, 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 that takes extra time. And while you try and give the best version of live that you can get, there's something to be said for just going with it. There's nothing like that thrill of doing something for an audience live.
Yeah, you know, there's this I don't know, there's this energy about doing something live, and when it's like a ride, and when you're on it, you're just really, you know, going at it, and then it's over and you're like, okay, good. You know, even if you've had a rough ride, you know, at the end of it, you're still like, okay, you know,
we made it. We made it through.
We made it, but you know.
So we skipped 2.5 pages. We made it.
Yeah.
Because that's what my background is theater. I have a master's degree in it, and you know, that's what you do when you're in a play type situation where the audience is expecting the next scene to come and they haven't heard it before. They don't know that you just messed up. So if you roll with it, chances are you're gonna get away with it, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, that was brilliant," and we didn't notice anything.
Yeah, when I first started directing newscasts, I was still in training. And I think my first show was flawless, and I was full of confidence. And then I did the second show that night, and I just tanked. And I mean, everything went wrong, and for the whole half hour. And my buddy who was training me said, you know, hey, you know, don't worry about it. You got tomorrow. You know, you've got another show to redeem yourself. And you know, that while that's true in a sense, in what we do, those shows live on online. So, you know,
boy, do they.
Yeah, you know, so, and it kind of kills me a little bit when I read the comments and, you know, somebody points out the obvious about something that's gone wrong. And it's like, yeah, I know that. and I did everything I could to fix it.
When they point it out as though it were fresh, and this is a podcast you did like 4 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know.
But people always want to be helpful.
Yeah.
And think that they're the first to come up with any original idea. Let me tell you something. Those people who think that they're the first to think of something, they are very vocal.
But, you know, and I do have to say, though, that, you know, there have been some things on comments that we thought, oh, it's not a big deal. And, you know, enough people have said something that we had to take a second look. Or there is a problem that we didn't realize. And, you know, we found it through reading the comments.
There is such a thing as constructive criticism. Unfortunately, that is a very minor part of the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, you know, if you're going to play, you know, that's part of the pay.
So has anything like that happened on one of the RT's streams? I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but has anything like catastrophically wrong ever happened?
Not so much in the year that I've been there. Not compared to some of the stories I've heard before I started.
Right.
I've just been lucky. It's not anything I've really done. It's just I've been
lucky. No, that's a pretty good streak to hold. I mean, honestly, if you're sitting there batting 1,000, I wouldn't complain.
I mean, you know, we've had some like minor dumb mistakes. Like just the other day, I actually moved the camera while it was on air, and without telling Kara, you know, hey, clear this. And I thought that was a rookie mistake. That was so. But you know, you have those moments where you're just you get comfortable and you do dumb stuff.
I was just about to say that. That's what happens when you get comfortable. You make mistakes.
Yep. And so, you know, we have little things like that. And then we have machinery problems. You know, the thing about, you know, all of our stuff runs off of either laptops or desktops now and right now. And, you know, computers freeze up. And so we may not see credit because I can't get, Adobe Premiere Pro to come up,
Or the live show we did at Joe Rogan's
Oh,
MMA gym, where
yeah.
the audience in the room couldn't hear anything, but as far as the stream goes, it went perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the story behind that, because I don't think we've really talked about this very much. What had happened was, and I was so proud of myself because this was going to be the first live production that I was completely in charge of.
Yeah.
And we had everything wired and tested and in place a good 2 hours before the show. And we had run sound checks throughout the day, and everything sounded fine.
Now, the stage is basically an MMA ring that's set in the middle of this gym floor that's in a gym. So it's like 30-foot high ceiling and cinder block walls and wooden floor. And then there's also like a lady up in the corner doing some sort of aerial acrobatics in a ring. There's a skybox over here where the higher ups are looking over everybody. There's an open bar and probably 250, 300 some odd people.
Yeah. It was,
just to paint a word picture.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the show's about to start, and I think people were there mostly for the free booze. They weren't necessarily Rooster Teeth
The room
fans.
was very clearly divided in half of the Rooster Teeth people and then people who had muscles.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we're drinking.
Yeah.
And so the room was really loud. But I thought it was because of the music. But what was interesting is that you just heard this chatter, this really loud chatter throughout the whole evening.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a live show earlier that week during South by, and people were talking in the room. But once the show started, everybody got quiet. Well, at this party, the show started and nobody stopped talking.
No,
it seemed like everyone just kept talking, and so now you've got a room full of people who are drinking and talking against four people on a stage
with microphones and giant speakers. I mean,
giant speakers.
It's not as though they were not amplified in the room.
Yeah, and so it was. It just turned into a nightmare within a split second, and we're about to go on air, and as soon as the guys got on stage, and we turned up the mics, and we just heard this sound, and it was
the bad feedback.
The feedback, and because we had to turn things up so that they could hear them, but at the same time it was bringing back the audio, the audience noise, and Bernie was like, "Hey, are we doing something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working on it," and he was concerned, and I was concerned. We were all concerned, and sponsors were there. They were concerned, and it got heated really quickly because we had to figure this out fast. And luckily, Blaine was running our audio, and Blaine is good on audio as far as it comes to a closed studio setting. He doesn't really know audio as an engineer or a sound design person.
Someone who actually has been trained to have an ear for that sort of thing.
Right, and knows, these frequencies do this and whatnot.
Right.
So he was there, and he is, poor guy, he was just really, I don't want to say he was freaking out, but he didn't know what to do. And
very much up a creek.
Exactly. And as we all were, because the situation just really flooded in on us.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, this guy who was an audio engineer was in the audience and ran over and started tweaking the soundboard that we had rented. That was the other thing. We were using equipment we had never used before.
Right.
And so he came over and started tweaking and helped the room out. But we got things situated. But yeah, it's one of those things where things happen so quickly in a live situation that I've seen directors and camera people and even on-air talent freeze because they don't know what to do because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's
and
those
especially in a conversational type scenario like that where they have to talk to each other. I mean, that's the purpose of the entire thing, is so that they can conversate. And if somebody says something that's supposed to be really funny and they go, ha 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 ha, and make eye contact with you, and you're just sitting there like, what the hell did you just say? That completely derails any momentum that you might have, and the show never happens.
Right. Yeah. And it's you know, I've seen where if a person can't handle that situation, you know, it just goes south even harder. So yeah, it was.
I mean, thankfully you had the on-stage personalities, or Joe Rogan, a ruddy stand-up comedian, Bernie Burns and Gus Sorolla, and then one of the other guys who was from the gym, I believe.
No, he was from the sponsor, from Onnit. He was the CEO of Onnit.
Oh.
So yeah. So
so they all carried themselves as well as they could. I mean, they were very composed considering the circumstances.
Yeah, they really were. And what I didn't know until after the show wrapped, and I went over to talk to Gus to make sure everything was okay. Mm-hmm. The problem for them wasn't the feedback or the audience noise. The problem was that they couldn't hear each other because of the audience noise. The audience was so loud that there were Gus and Bernie and the other two, and Joe and the other talent couldn't hear each other at all. And if you look at the video, they're leaning into each other when they talk. And I had
very heavily.
And so, you know, it was just a learning experience. And really that's what live events are.
Like I said, they were all consummate professionals and made it through the ruddy show. And that's just what you have to do, and hope that the stream came out fine, which it did, thankfully. The version that you can watch online of that show is very fine. I mean, it's not the best show that's ever been made ever, but as far as the quality goes, it's absolutely listenable, watchable. You can't tell the difference.
And you know, that's I think sometimes the point.
There's this saying, your job is done right when no one can tell that you've done anything at all.
Correct.
And so, especially when you're doing some of these live things, if you can just get out of the way and it does well, then you've probably done a good job. People will love you for it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's basically what I try to do. I try to make it as easy as possible so that when the talent gets on set, you know, they can do what they got to do and not worry about anything else. And
can just be the talent.
Right. Yeah.
So, that brings us to the part of our program that I love the most. I've always enjoyed the Inside the Actor Studios method of ending on the brief questionnaire. So I, too, have a reappropriated version of the Proust Personality Questionnaire. Cool. And it goes a little something like this. Patrick, what's your favorite word?
Damn it.
I can dig it. What's your least favorite word?
The F word, the gay slur F.
Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
Running water.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Babies crying.
What hero or heroine do you identify with the most?
I'm going to say Superman.
What villain or villainess?
The Joker.
What would be your superpower?
Levitation.
And your super weakness?
Super weakness. Ooh, that's a good one.
I know. I love these questions.
Super weak. I think the inability to move.
What turns you on, either creatively, spiritually, emotionally? What gets your juices flowing? What gets your wheels turning?
A really good piece of music.
And what turns you off?
Negativity.
What other talent, other than the ones you've obviously been gifted with, would you like to have?
I'd love to sing.
What advice would you give to your 13-year-old self?
Have more fun.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
That's my favorite too. I can't not comment on that one. Most of these I try to stay out and not comment on anything. That's my favorite one too. Where would you one day like to live?
Spain.
Beautiful countryside, beautiful. And if you had your choice, finally, how long would it take you to respawn after you died?
Maybe 30 years.
Really?
Good few decades, and see how things change.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that kind of rounds out our program here. I want to thank my guest, Patrick, for coming on today. Really, thank you so much, sir, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Tim. I really enjoyed it. This was fun.
Is there anything you'd like to plug before we go?
RTX 2014 is coming up, and I know it's about sold out.
Is that of the 3-day badges themselves or of all tickets?
I believe Sunday passes are still available.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's about it.
Oh, it's going to be so awesome. You are going to be very sorry if you are not here come that July 4th weekend, because you're going to be able to hear about it the next county over and not over the internet.
Exactly.
And so my name is Tim Leftwich. You've been watching this on youtube.com/Tim Leftwich. You can find Patrick. You're not on Twitter, I don't believe, are you?
Yeah, I am actually.
Oh, you are?
I'm just I'm low key. Podrick, ATX.
Ah, righto. And that will be his name underneath in the entire program. Again, my name is Tim Leftwich. You can find me at Tim Leftwich or youtube.com/Tim Leftwich like you've been watching here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And as always, we'll see you next time.